Okay. Hi everyone, thanks for joining today. Appreciate you taking time out of your day to attend today's webinar, which we'll be looking at cybersecurity, but ultimately what Fortinet can do for organizations that are looking to assess the threat within their current environment. Firstly, I will just give you a bit of an overview in terms of who we are, so PrimeTel, and why we set this up today. So PrimeTel are trusted advisors. We help companies buy technology better, essentially. We have spent many years assessing the market in various different for various different technologies, so that when we work with our clients on understanding what their challenges are, understanding what their goals are, we can quickly help them assess the market and evaluate the right suppliers for their business. At director level, we have around 50 years experience, and over the last few years, we've started to win some awards for the work that we do. We have quite a simple process. So when we're faced with a requirement for one of our customers, we have a team of experts that are experienced in different technologies, and we'll take you through the investigation and solution design. Ultimately, what we try and do is focus on, like I said before, the challenges that are within your business, and ultimately what your goals are. We'll then support you through the whole supplier evaluation process. That's whether you go to tender, or go straight to supplier meetings. We'll set up those meetings, we'll manage those meetings, and PrimeTel will effectively act as an additional member of your team. Some of the solutions that we're focusing on quite a lot at the moment, quite a hot topic, you can see here. So if there's anything here that stands out that you might be considering, then PrimeTel are well positioned to help you investigate those. We're certainly seeing a lot around hosted telephony, contact center, and it's not on there, but we are having lots of conversations around AI and implementation of large language models. Certainly it's a big market, and there's a lot of interest from some of our clients. But today we're talking about cybersecurity, and whilst we've got some experts on to talk about it, it didn't take much searching of the internet to get some important statistics around the impact of cybersecurity and the threats that there are in relation to UK business. And there's some statistics here. I think everyone's quite aware of the threat that's out there with regards to cybersecurity. You know, businesses of all sizes need to ensure that they have adequate protection in place, but then also ensure that they have an adequate method of repair and resolve should an issue come about. And that's really why we're here today. So today we're in partnership with some leaders in this space. We're working with Securus Communications and Exclusive Networks to bring you Fortinet's cybersecurity assessment program, which is a free program, I hasten to add. So there's a real benefit here for organizations that are looking to understand the current state of their network from a cybersecurity standpoint. But I'll let the guys explain more. So yeah, I'll hand over to Fortinet and Exclusive to present.
Thank you very much. So hello everyone, my name is Ben Ridgway. I'm Channel Account Manager and I've been at Fortinet now for about 2.5 years, and working with Securus for that amount of time as well. And of course I've got Ryan Ball with me as well.
So yeah, I work at Exclusive on the vendor alliances team, focusing solely on Fortinet. I've been at Exclusive 8 years and on the vendor team for about 3.5 now as well. So I work alongside Ben with the majority of my opportunities and CTAP operations that we do.
Thanks, Ryan. Okay, so
just to say, if anyone's got any questions as we go, just put them in the chat and we'll either address them as they come in, or we'll have a Q&A session at the end.
Great, thank you. So today we're looking to talk around, it's been mentioned before, but the CTAP program that we offer. Like many areas of IT, we do like an acronym. So I'll go into what CTAP really stands for. One of the many that we use within the UK, within Fortinet as well within the UK. But essentially what it stands for is our cyber threat assessment program. So Much like it was mentioned by Scott earlier, it's available to anyone and everyone. If you're an existing customer of Fortinet or Securitas in some way, shape or form, it's a service that you can run. But again, if you're a prospective customer of ours, again, it's a service that you can certainly look at as well. So it is available to everyone. Essentially, boiling down, it looks to assess an organization's network, not just so much for the problems, potential risks and areas of that nature, but certainly for things like efficiencies as well. How that network is it running to an optimum state? Is there potentially a sort of efficiency savings that can be made? Is there areas where you might be struggling for bandwidth? So it's certainly a very, very good tool for getting a holistic view of what your network's operating in at the moment. And we say normally, of course, it's your prerogative. What we suggest is the assessment is performed behind existing controls as well. So I imagine you'll probably have some sort of firewall or device that's set up in existence. But of course, we would not integrate with that. It's a standalone service that's sort of operating from a spam port. But we can go through that a bit later. Cool. So benefits, let me just minimize that screen there as well for you, just in case. There we go. So benefits of running the assessment. So you receive a full network report. And keep me honest with this, Ryan, I think it's between sort of 12 and 20 pages, depending on the sort of detail we go into.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we've got an example report which we'll go through as well at the end of this, just to show you.
Great, thank you. So a full report that you'll get alongside all the information that's being gathered, that's presented back to you in a number of different infographics. It gives you an executive summary as well. So it really has a lot of content in there for all different areas of your business, depending on the audience, which is very handy. It gives you full visibility of real threats that are on your network. So these are hypothetical threats that may be sort of buzzwords within the industry. These will be areas that the tool would have highlighted existing on your network. So of course, that's going to be incredibly important information for you to have and utilize when that report gets sent through to you. And more often than not, it allows you to justify spend in certain areas. One of the main issues that certainly Ryan and I see within the channel in security is struggling for budget to try and do upgrade work, to try and enable remote workers from home. It can often be an area that falls on deaf ears of management. So it's an area that it provides you a really, really detailed report to give you the evidence that you need to make a business case. So incredibly useful stuff. It provides a full holistic view of your security posture. So like I mentioned before, you might have dealt with Fortinet in the past, you might not have done. It doesn't matter what vendors or what environments you have set up at the moment, the CTAP will be able to pull that information and review it. So it gives you a really well-rounded view, regardless of the vendors that you use. It will allow you to familiarize yourself with the products, certainly from a Fortinet standpoint, but if you wanted to be quite hands-on in deploying this, of course, you can end up deploying it yourself with either our help or Securitas. But of course, we can take that load off you. And if you'd like us just to manage and look after it, of course, that's completely your prerogative as well. But it does give the ability to get hands-on with the product. There's no investment of time or staff that's needed. You can be as hands-on as you'd like to be. But I'd probably say about 95% of the people that we work with will just want ourselves exclusive and secure to do the bulk of the work. So very limited input from yourselves. And there's no disruption to your existing network services as well. So there's no compromises you really have to make to get the service up and running. So from I suppose a key questions area, and this is something that I've collected over the last sort of 12 months or so in working with people who do CTAPs. There's always a lot of focus on the likes of risks within businesses. And of course, the nature of security, risk is always one of the main areas that we tend to focus on. But the information gives you a really, really good view of different areas of perhaps network configuration. If you're looking at perhaps investing in some new offices and new sites, are you set up? Are you geared? Are you geared to having an infrastructure that can support that growth? There's a whole host of different areas here as well. So we'll be happy to send these questions over to you after. And it's often quite handy to have these in your back pocket when you're speaking internally, because it can often generate a lot of conversations with management, which is always fun. There's 5 types of assessments that we run. So there's 3, which is standard. So we have our next generation firewall, which is essentially the bulk of what we do. Probably about 80% of the CTAPs that we do are based on the firewall. We also have an email one as well, SD-WAN. And we've also got the ability now to do OT, so operational technology. If you're working in an environment perhaps to do with energy or manufacturing, this could be quite a popular one to look at. We've always got, I suppose, the popular conception that OT is always much along the manufacturing vertical, but it is really starting to come out into wider business units. One of the examples that we always use with our OT team is Costa Coffee. And you just think how much operational technology is in their day-to-day business, whether it's roasting the beans, whether it's their point of sale machines that they have in their cafes, or whether it's actually the machines which are set up at car garages. There's a whole host of areas now, and especially Internet of Things and operational technology, that we really need to start to think about securing. So that's one that we can run as a bit more of a bespoke service, but one that's certainly worth looking at. And of course, FortiSandbox as well. So working in conjunction with the firewall, it could be a really, really good platform. Essentially, if something's identified on your network and you just want to move it to one site to do a bit more of a deeper inspection, look at perhaps how it performs and some of the patterns and the nature of potentially an attack or a piece of software. Really, really good tool to look at and operate as well. And the firewall and sandbox can often be combined into one CTAP. So just something to bear in mind with that one. I won't cover too much about the sample report at this stage, because I know Ryan's going to take us through one slightly later, but essentially it gives you a bit of a visualization there of the pages and some of the infographics that you'll see. I don't want to take too much of Ryan's thunder by any means, but the executive summary, 1 or 2 pages, is certainly probably the most useful. And what we do off the back of it is give you a list of recommendations. Now, the recommendations are not going to be necessarily to buy a Fortinet firewall or something like that. Essentially, it's going to give you lots of suggested amendments you can make to your network. Potentially, if there's risks that have been discovered, ways that you can root them out, maybe a configuration or a patching change that might be able to help there as well. So it's not going to be stipulating that you're going to have to spend hundreds of thousands of pounds. It's more giving you some help and guidance and advice on how you as a customer might be able to make yourself more secure. So it really breaks down into 5 steps about how we see this working. So in terms of creating the assessment, it's something that by putting a call into Securus, you'll be able to get we'll be able to get everything kicked off for you. Essentially provisioning the device or service. So we have 2 different elements that we can work here. We have a virtual machine, which we can set up in an environment that you've nominated. Or we do have our traditional on-premise equipment still, the CPU, which is also an option available to you. If we're looking at solely cloud, that's available for our email flavor. But certainly, let's say, the majority of what we do is on-premise equipment still, but the virtual option is there. You'll then spend between 3 and 7 days. It can run for a lot longer. It's completely your decision. We do have some customers that end up running them for maybe a week, a couple of weeks, and we can do it at just one site per instance. So if you had 3 sites as an example, we could do 3 separate CTAPs, or we could just collect the information from one site. Again, that's completely up to you. Off the back of that, it will then generate pretty much instantaneously a report, which will then go to yourselves in Securus. And off the back of that, you then have a call to discuss the findings. And that can have either a subject matter expert on from the Fortinet side, but I know Securus, the likes of Rob and the team there, they'll be able to cover off the majority of everything that comes up. So again, an option for you on how you'd like to discuss and look at some of those recommendations. For the ones that want to get a bit more hands-on, we do have the checklist as well that comes built in. So there's lots of information and collateral that we build around the CTAP program. Essentially, it gives you the options there. If you wanted to set it up yourself, again, not mandatory, but if the option is there, it just gives you some simple guidance on how to set it up in terms of plugging in, getting the operations and the reports running. And again, an option for people there if you wanted to have that as a trial option. So the uncovered business risks. So we do find, it's themed the bad stuff, I suppose, how we find it from the reporting sense, but it does tend to pick up a lot of things like malware and botnets, and that's across all the different types of programs that we run within the CTAP. You'll find on the firewall side, there'll be elements like high-risk applications that often get drawn on. From email, it could be things like malicious URLs. Impersonations is something that's becoming increasingly more prolific as well, quite common. And the likes of SD-WAN, it gives you things like unusual cloud app usage as well. So it tends to look for things like patterns within how applications and perhaps the network behaves, and then it would take them to one side and of course provide the evidence in that report for you to make an informed decision on. So I suppose a question to everyone out there, what percentage of assessments do you think we would find what was deemed to be the bad stuff in? What sort of percentage do you think we'd be looking at? If not, I can give that to you, Ryan. I'll put you on the spot. What would you suggest?
I'm sorry, I'm on mute. I would say around 60-70%, or something along those lines.
Yeah, absolutely right. So 70%. So this is a global number. This is not UK specific, but certainly 70% of all assessments, and that's not necessarily a business critical failure. That's nothing like a ransomware attack theoretically, but it could be something there that's an open port. It could be behavior of an employee that might have highlighted some of these issues. So again, 70% of all the reports that we run tend to have something in there that you probably want to pay attention to. And all that information will be presented back to you at the end of the duration of the CTAP. Cool. So from a report point of view, I'll hand over to Ryan just to take us through one of the example reports, and it will just show you some of the areas there that you'll be able to get your information reporting on.
Cheers, Ben. Thank you. Let me just share my screen and we'll get up a report for the next generation firewall. So this is the report, if you all can see that, which will be chucked out at the end of the 7 days. So as Ben touched on earlier, the executive summary is split down into 3 sections. The security, which will show the number of vulnerable attacks that have been detected, how much malware and botnets have been discovered, and how many high-risk applications. We've got productivity, which is the total number of applications detected, how many proxy applications, and the total number of peer-to-peer, and the utilization as well. So it will show you the total number of bandwidth, the average log rate per second, and the percentage of the SSL traffic which is actually encrypted. So that's a good idea if you want to maybe scope out the next sort of kit that you're looking to upgrade to. It's a good idea to get a good sort of roundabout ballpark figure of what you're wanting to look at. All of these do not have any kind of identifying information on, so it is purely just metadata which is pulled together for this. So there is nothing when you present this that will get anyone in trouble or just single a single person out. And then it kind of dives a little bit deeper. So we start looking at the application vulnerability exploits, and it will post a list of the top 10. And it gives them a little 1 to 5, 1 being a low risk and 5 being the highest. And as you can see, it gives you a little bit of information on the type of the threat, the number of victims and sources, etc. All this is based upon FortiGuard, which kind of backs up the whole fabric from Fortinet. So it currently scans around 5,800 known application threats, but that is forever being updated as the gates out in the field detecting threats. So it will also run against those ones. It does the exact same for the malware and botnets and spyware as well. It breaks it down there again, a top 10. And then on the high risk applications too. So if you've got anybody on your network which is maybe using a peer-to-peer file sharing, etc., it will bring that up as well and tell you the number of users that are doing that, how much bandwidth, etc. It also does the at-risk devices and hosts and puts that in a nice little graph as well, which is easily presentable. And then it also brings on to the unknown malware. Now, this is where it will tie in with the sandboxing CTAP. So if this is something which you'd want to do, you'd have to let us know so we can enable that feature. But essentially what it would do is any which it was not aware of or FortiGuard has not kind of been privy to, it would open those up in a separate kind of like little sandbox VMware VM kind of application. It would run it and see what behavior it does and where it tries to speak to, and then it will give it a risk based upon how it acts and how it works. And then it throws out a nice little pie chart there as well, which is easily presented back based again on risk around the files and maliciousness of those files. We also get a cloud usage pie graph as well, which shows you the amount of the bandwidth which is being used towards YouTube or whichever application it is. And we also get an infrastructure one as well, another version of it, the same again, except this one's obviously IaaS, it's not SaaS. We then get some nice little graphs around the remote access applications and peer-to-peer applications. Just gives a little bit of a breakdown of what in each of those categories is being used the most. And that goes again for social media, the AV streaming applications. It does the same for web applications. It tells you how many sessions, what bandwidth it's taking up on your network. Top websites being visited on that network. Again, doesn't tell you who's been using them. It just tells you which one, what category it is, and how long it's being used. And then it kind of categorizes them into whether it's for business, news, media, etc. And we get a similar sort of report and a kick out, which we get for the web domains as well. Then we also go a bit further into the utilization. And this will give you an idea of the total bandwidth, etc. It'll tell you the times when it tends to be more busy. So you might find that if you've got a lunchtime of 12 to 1 and a lot of your staff are working within the office, you might find that YouTube and everything goes up by that hour, in which case you can use this to maybe limit some of the bandwidth on certain items just to make sure you've got your network covered with everything that you require. And it gives you a source of all these bandwidth consuming destinations and sources too. And then it also breaks that down by country, and then we get the log rate per hour, and that's done across the time as well. We also get a FortiGate CPU usage by hour, and I believe a memory one as well. So it can kind of show you what loads being put onto that FortiGate devices and at what times. And then, as Ben mentioned before, it kicks out some recommendations, which will kind of summarize all of that report for when you do your meeting and maybe discuss it at C-level. So I think that's pretty much anything you want to add to that, Ben?
No, just from my side, I mean, the recommendations, I think probably are the real key of the report. It really kind of spells out what actions might need to be taken. So there was obviously the threat side in there, but certainly from the likes of network optimization, different areas like that, it certainly covers those bits as well. So it's not always the negative aspects. It does give you quite a lot around, I suppose, future-proofing of the business and a host of different areas as well. So definitely a really, really valuable piece.
Yeah, just to add as well, any information that this CTAP gets, it doesn't store anything. As soon as this report is presented, all the information on there, all the metadata on there is straight up forgotten. There's nothing saved, nothing stored, and there's certainly nothing identifiable either. Yeah. So yeah, that concludes the report part. Is there anything you'd like to add to that, Brett or Scott?
I had a question. You mentioned around the web usage and it not going down to the level of per user, so to say who's browsing these sites or whatever. If they wanted to drill down, if people wanted to drill down to that level, how would they go about doing that?
That would probably be the FortiAnalyzer route, in which case we would run FortiAnalyzer. You could do that as a demo, and that kind of gets a lot more granular then. And you can do that into, again, a variety of flavors. You can either do it high level, mid level, or really get down into it. This is more just to identify that there is users doing that. Yeah.
I have a question, if I may. So if I'm in an environment where Fortinet is not the predominant firewall, so there's a rival firewall that's in there, does the CTAP still give me the relevant information?
Yeah, it does, yeah. As long as you've got a spare port that it can sit on, like a spam port, that it can sniff all the data from, it doesn't matter what other technologies you've got involved, it will still kick out the same report with the same information.
Perfect, thank you.
Not a problem.
So any questions from anyone else on the call about the CTAP program or anything else that myself and Ryan might be able to help with?
I have enabled everyone's microphone, so if you want to just take yourself off mute, you can just speak openly. I had another question, because I think this is a great service, and not just because it's from one of the industry's leading security manufacturers, but the fact that it's free is really impressive. I just want to understand, how is it free? What's the catch?
There's no catch with it at all, essentially. Like I say, it's completely free service that we offer.
Yeah.
Of course, it is going to produce a report that might highlight some areas that you might want to focus and look at. It could be something that you might be able to configure with what you have in place already at the moment within your environments. There may be areas that potentially be some gaps. So of course, we as Fortinet would have products that would theoretically fill that gap. But of course, off the back of the report, I need to say that. But off the back of the report, again, there's no commitment from spending anything with us. It's really just giving you that information to make the decision with as you see fit.
Great.
That was the key, Scott. Is there is no obligation to buy anything here, and I want everybody on the call to know that. Manny, I noticed you got your hand up. So is there a question for the team?
That's correct. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for arranging this meeting. Yes, I'm following on Scott's questions, whether you can narrow the information based on the user. Can you narrow it based on the VLAN? We have a few VLANs. We've been interested to find out the vulnerability of each of the VLANs that we have.
Yeah, that should be fine as well. I mean, depending on what your requirements are, we can always get something set up, a quick call beforehand, to find out exactly what it is that you're wanting to narrow it down upon. And then before the unit is sent out, we would configure that in that respect.
Excellent.
So, yeah,
Very
not a
good to
problem.
know. Thank you. Thank you.
Just one other question about the setup. So is the device shipped to site and the customer just plugs it into their network? They've got instructions, or do you send someone out? Or
So what we tend to do is we would send out one of our engineers for the first install, and that's again free of charge. I mean, if you've got a customer that knows firewalls, it literally just plugs into the spam port, you turn it on, and away you go. It's all preloaded. But if you do need some assistance, we'll be happy to send an engineer along, and then any of your guys there, which will maybe want to shadow them, so you know for next time, and they can transfer that knowledge on. That's all included with the service too.
And obviously, in the attendee list at the moment, some of those are existing customers of Securus. So obviously, we would send one of our engineers out to install it with exclusive and Fortinet's help. So we would cover those off, Scott. It would be, in my personal opinion, having somebody from exclusive Fortinet or Securus on site to install it is the right way.
okay.
Sorry, sorry, I didn't raise my hand this time. Got another question for you. I think Ryan, sorry. We are already Fortinet customers. We got some Fortinet kit in our company, but this is registered with our headquarters with a mother company which is abroad. Would that create any conflict? Is that still
So
entitled to
the CTAPs that we do are only based in the UK for shipping reasons.
Yeah, we are in the UK
and compliance. So as long as if the company is based abroad, but where you're running the CTAP is in the UK, that shouldn't be an issue.
Oh, fantastic! Good to know as well.
Yeah, as long as the CTAP units that we're shipping out do not cross any waters, we're fine.
Yeah, we already got 40. We already got 14 kit, but it's registered abroad.
If you needed to do one which was maybe on site and abroad, you would speak to the local Fortinet channel there, who probably do their version of it, and it would come from the local distributor in that area. Yeah, so this is global, but obviously through Securus we're just doing the UK ones.
I understand. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay. Does anyone else have any more questions? Take yourself off mute or put it in the chat.
I think just to add to what you said earlier, Scott, as well, when you said why are these free, from my point of view, is around about 80% of these that I've done with any opportunities or accounts that I've done, I've turned into an order as well after they've took that report to a customer. So I think the fact that the success rate of one of these being ran, the reports being made, and then a CISO or whichever C-level signing it off is 80%. That is why we tend to do these for free of charge.
Yeah, and I think that's key. And I think these reports form the basis of the consultative approach that we're coming in with. It's a discussion piece around some of the vulnerabilities that have been highlighted within your network infrastructure, but ultimately it's how Securus with Fortinet can plug those holes hopefully get things running to how they should be. So I mean, ultimately, the purpose of the webinar today was to give you all an overview of the CTAP. But the next steps from our side is for us to reach out to you and just have a bit more of a detailed conversation, understand whether this is of interest and whether it's something you'd like to do. If anyone wants to sort of prioritize a follow-up, I'm just going to put a poll up. So if you're interested in booking a call or meeting, just confirm by clicking yes or no, and we'll prioritize the follow-ups. But I think other than that, we're all done. So thanks, guys. Thank you very much, Fortinet. Thank you, Exclusive and Securus. Really good session, really good service, and hopefully we can have some meaningful conversations with those on the call.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for joining, everyone.
Thank you for your time. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.